Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to VA Friyay. We're going to be talking about more confusion on the NAR lawsuit. And per my last video, actually, I feel like I said a few things incorrect. And I learned more this week. Watched a few videos, read a few articles, talked to a lot of agents, and I'm going to kind of just count what I've learned. But before we get right into it, I'm going to do a quick dad joke. So, dad joke is dogs. Did you know dogs can't operate MRIs, but CATSCAN, get it? Beep, beep. All right, so getting right into it. So this is what I've learned and understand about the NAR lawsuit. It all started with, and people keep confusing me with this, it's either the seller or the buyer. Somebody complained about buyer's agent commission and what it has explained that they were properly informed of the, I guess, the option to pay that buyer's agent commission. Now, going back, from what I understand, the specific MLS that the state is in doesn't allow for the MLS to put in a zero commission. Either way, it doesn't matter. So, what it boiled down to was that this is a state court decision in Missouri, right? And they've made a court ruling. And NAR will appeal. So the decision that was just made last week will be appealed by the NAR going to the Supreme Court, which is gonna take a long time. So before anything actually happens. So that's one thing, right? So whatever the state ruled for just last week has nothing to do with the national. It just has to do with the state of Missouri for now. And then NAR was going to appeal, which they will, taking it to the Supreme Court, which is, again, it's going to take a very, very long time. Now, overall, what I've understood about the process is the question as to how the buyer's agent commission is going to be disclosed or communicated if it is going to be. So, I don't really know if it actually fixes the problem, because in the beginning I was kind of led to believe it was like a seller problem, but now I'm learning it's a buyer problem. And I think a lot of people are now wondering how to address the issue and concerned about how they're going to get paid. Rightfully so. Now, as a buyer's agent, you get paid through the seller's proceeds and things like that, right? The 6% commission, which gets split between the buyers and the listing agent, which is always how it's done. And what's interesting is that Washington State kind of addressed the issues and the problems that this brings up. And Washington State has, and even the Northwest MLS has even put out a press release that they are not going to change anything because they've already addressed the issue. So how did they address the issue? One, they made it very public as to how much the buyer's agent commission is. And the other side is that the listing agents are required to have a conversation and have a buyer or the seller sign a disclosure, this specifically stating that they have the option to adjust the buyer's agent commission from 0 to whatever, but they also need to understand the pros and cons. And from what I understand, agents at a high level are already operating with the buyer agency agreement, which clearly outlines how they get paid. So if agents, I guess, and I'm getting this information from leaders, I guess. And if I understand, if you're not using the buyer's agent commission, that's probably where a lot of confusion is coming from if you're not having those hard conversations as to how you're getting paid within the transaction. So, and what's funny is that the other note that I've heard somebody say is that if there's going to be a strong chance that within the transaction, the buyer's agent's commission and the seller's agent commission is going to have to be shown somewhere within the transaction. I'm like, that's already shown on the settlement statement. So I don't know what the actual issue is from my perspective. I guess I'm a loan officer. I don't really know. So yeah, the next step, from what I understand, is nothing's been actually, a decision has been made on a state level, but the NAR has the ability to appeal, which will go to the national level of the Supreme Court. So as of right now, there's really nothing to do but protect yourself and making sure you're having those conversations with your clients that this is how you get paid within the transaction, and understand that that's how it works. Washington State, we're required to have that buyer's agency agreement. I think it's called the brokerage service agreement, whatever it's called. And you have to have that conversation. Before it was highly encouraged to use, now it's required in Washington State. Additionally, again, the listing agents have to have a specific conversation. So Washington State already kind of had to go through all this. So I don't think anything's going to change with Washington State specifically. But one of the other things I've learned about the MLS system is that every state is ran differently, or specifically probably county, as how their MLSs work. Some MLSs are ran by the members, and some MLSs are basically ran by NAR. Now the thing is, NAR wants to encourage buyers and sellers. So if they choose a ruling, or they go with a ruling that is against buyers and sellers, it really goes against. It impacts them on a direct basis on how what their mission is. So that's why they're going to appeal, and they're probably going to go to the Supreme Court, and it's probably going to take it to that level. So most likely, my guess, what's going to end up happening is that the disclosure that we built in Washington, as far as the buyer's agency agreement, brokerage service agreement, whatever it is, and the disclosure that listing agents have with their listing clients is going to be on a national level. That's my guess. They're probably just going to adopt what Washington has done and just go that direction. At least that's probably the most dumbed down, the most simplistic answer I could probably give. The most complicated one is, the same discussion that Washington State had in 2019 as to how a buyer's agent is going to get paid. Does that mean the buyers are going to have to pay for the buyer's agent commission? So if we really think about it, if we think about from the macro perspective, the nation is trying to solve housing affordability, right? So if they move forward and the industry goes into a standard practice where buyer's agent commission is being paid by the buyer, the housing affordability will go in the opposite direction of affordability completely. So not only are we going to have a problem with building houses and home prices, we're going to have a problem with home cost, the cost of buying a house, closing costs, and things like that. So what I hope that the logical progression in all these things is that everything just remains the same. Everyone just, the agents, whether it was a mistake or just not a good practice, they're going to start having these conversations like they were supposed to in the beginning, and having those hard conversations about why I'm worth the commission I give you. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what else to say about other than that. I think overall, once we kind of figure out about how the appeal process goes with the Supreme Court, we'll know more. But right now, until it gets to the Supreme Court, I mean, right now it's completely isolated to the state of Missouri, is how I understand it. So, I know a lot of agents are considering moving and shifting locations. I would just say maybe sit tight before anything happens, because NAR is I believe is going to appeal it and see what the Supreme Court ends up happening, because I think this is going to impact a bigger issue of housing affordability, is my guess. So if it's going to impact affordability, the public is not going to like that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the confusion among the NAR lawsuit. The other thing is, if one agent is following the NAR ruling as it is right now, let's say the ruling of the state side, and if they follow one side where they can't show the buyer's agent commission, but the buyer's agent is not NAR, or the listing agents and listing agent doesn't follow NAR, but the buyer's agent follows NAR, like who follows NAR about the ruling that was just made in the state of Missouri? Again, nothing's clear. So that's what's confusing. They just said, hey, we should, I think all they said is this is what the ruling should be. And then basically NAR is going to say appeal that, and I hope they go, yeah, that's stupid. So I will say good luck to NAR to hopefully get a more logical and clear process as to what's happening with buyer's agent commissions, because I think buyer's agents deserve that 2 to 3% whatever they earn. I would not want to spend 2 weeks with one client trying to show them houses. That's not just how I'm wired. So, and be able to understand what their needs are, especially, and all that, everything, all the emotions that go with that, having to take time off of your day and at random times during the day to go show a client a house. I think that is well worth the 2 to 3% that they've earned with that time with that client. I'm all for the commission that they've earned. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Educate me. I might be completely off. I'm here to learn about it. I'm trying my best to get ahead of it, try to get the explanation out there. And as we know, the big concern with VA clients is that they can't pay buyer's agent commission as of now. The VA may change depending on what the appeal Supreme Court, depending on how NAR appeals. So until a decision has been made on a state level, VA is probably not going to do anything, and as well as other loan programs. So anyway, that's all I got.